Do you want to discover more joy, peace, and freedom with food, exercise, and your body? Here we bring a compassionate, holistic, and sustainable approach to fitness so you can fully enjoy the life you want and express your unique self with the world. I'm Michelle Roscoe, and I want to help you find fitness freedom. I'm so glad you're here. All right, today I have Betty Guerrero with me. She is not only a fellow professional, she's also my friend, and I'm so excited to have her on the podcast today. A little bit about Betty. She was born and raised in Puerto Rico, and she now lives here in Madison, Wisconsin, of all places. She's a licensed registered dietitian and molecular cell biologist. She's a pro bodybuilder and personal trainer. She's also an amazing singer and a good friend. Her goal is to help people reach their ultimate health potential and to improve their confidence as well as their relationships with themselves and food. So welcome, Betty.
Great introduction. Thank you so much. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be on your podcast. You have no idea.
I'm so happy that you're here. So I want to get into this and ask you some questions about your background and how you do work with your clients and give some tips to the listeners that can help them specifically from where you are and your own experience and expertise. So first of all, what got you into the health and fitness industry, Betty?
Oh, I'll give you the long story less long. So when I was, growing up, I was in middle school. I was never athletic or anything like that. I was a theater nerd. I was in music. I was doing all the things except the athletic stuff. So my junior year of high school, I thought to myself, you know what? I want to do something different. I've been doing all these things. I've been in all these clubs, but the one thing that I have not tried yet is anything athletic. So I joined the soccer team my junior year of high school, and that's where I got introduced to weightlifting and exercising for the first time. And I loved it for a lot of reasons. I loved it because it helped me kind of struggle bus along with my peers, but it also allowed me to connect with my body in a way that I haven't done before. I come from a background of theater and dancing, and weightlifting was so different, and I truly fell in love with it. So I played soccer junior and senior year of high school, and then I went into college. And for me, that was a very sedentary stage of my life because I was in science, I was doing research. So I was either reading, sitting, or on a bench in a lab doing experiments. And I remember I saw this woman on social media, and she was very muscular yet feminine, and I just thought, wow, she's amazing. And I looked at my little arms at the time because I was always a very thin person. And I'm like, you know what? I want to do this. I want to see what I can do. So I got a membership at the gym, and I had no clue what I was doing. I was just kind of horsing around a little bit, and I had someone write a program for me. And that's kind of where everything got started. I fell in love with lifting. I fell in love with how it made me feel during and after. And it just became part of my routine. And at the time, it was just something very light, 2 times a week. And then I went on tour with my band, and that's where things got a little tricky. So at the time, I was the lead singer in a rock band, and it was a lot of erratic behaviors. I was never big into the party scene, but we were either driving. So again, a lot of sitting down or performing for an hour or two. And my brother and I decided that we were going to work out while we were on tour. So we did that. And then we weren't on tour anymore. And I thought, oh crap, well, what am I going to do with my life? I didn't really have a clear career path at the time, but I knew I was good at something and I was good at working out. So I became a personal trainer. And I don't know. I feel like with a lot of personal trainers, sometimes you get into it by accident, and I fell in love with it, and I thought I could share that with people, and people allowed me to kind of, them be my little guinea pig and train them, and I just fell in love with it. So once the tour was over, things happened. I ended up moving to Madison, and I picked up a job as a personal trainer, and I did that for a really long time. I want to say about 2 straight years before I decided that I wanted to compete in bodybuilding because I had friends that were in that. So again, fell in love with it from a different angle. So now I'm eating all these things. My diet is very regimented. My structure at the gym is very regimented too.
Mhm.
And I go into this world of competitive bodybuilding where things are just very different. You're no longer just working out because it's fun.
Yeah.
Um, you're working out because you have a goal in mind. There's a prize to win. You have to eat all these things at different times. And that's where my love for nutrition kind of came into full circle. So once I got done with that first bout of competitive bodybuilding in 2016, again, I think it was more of like a quarter life crisis too. I was 25. I was getting very burned out from personal training at the time. I had done it for, 4 to 6 years at that point. And I remember I had a phone call with my dad, and I was just very frustrated. And he was, you know what? Why don't you go into dietetics? My parents are physicians, and I was like, what is that? That growing up, that was never a thing. I have never thought of becoming a registered dietitian. I wasn't even sure about what they did to begin with. And I started doing a little more digging into it, and I decided, you know what? This resonates with me. I can make a career out of this. I can figure out a way to marry the training and the nutrition aspect of things. So I went in and did it. I was an older person in school, but I got through it. I loved it. I did my internship. I did all my things. And in 2021, I became a licensed registered dietitian. So that's kind of how I got into the health and fitness industry, a little bit by accident, a little bit through some healthy competitiveness. And now I'm here, and I'm here to say because I love it so much.
Oh, that is so amazing. I love that story so much. There's a background in dancing and music and theater. And I think a lot of people can relate to that because sometimes when people see a personal trainer or someone who's really into fitness, they think, oh, I'm not that kind of person. Like, I'm not athletic. It's not for me. So it's nice to hear that you had that background and that you got into it that way. And you also have the background in molecular biology, right? That was your undergrad.
Yeah, so I was a researcher, and I did a lot of research actually in electrophysiology and bioinformatics, which sound like very big words. But it was such an interesting part of my career because I knew how important things were at the biochemical level.
Yeah.
Everything we eat translates to things and how our body processes it and how our bodies function. And it's not as simple as eat a lot of protein or skip carbs or fats are bad for you. That background, I think, changed my mindset a lot from the get go because in the fitness industry, as I'm sure you know, and anyone who's listening to this, there are so many messages that are so unhealthy and
Yeah.
are more in the aesthetics and vanity and quick results edge of things. And that background allowed me to understand from the beginning, like, no, your body needs energy, your body needs a variety of foods. It needs all these things that you're depriving yourself of because you want to be, quote unquote, thin or fit a mold, or, you look at these people on the internet and you think that's what you need to look like. But I've
Mhm.
always had more of a health first approach. And I think that's one of the things that this industry needs a lot more of.
I love that so much. That is so cool. I think that helps my clients and has helped me too, is understand the processes behind what's happening. Like, it's not just food that has an emotional tie or connection to you. It does have that, but underneath that, there's scientific processes going on in our bodies when we consume food, when we consume them, how much we consume, our own biology and our own genetics and all of that play into part, as you know. But you said health first is important to you. What does health mean to you, Betty? What does health mean to you?
To me, health is this beautiful long-term up and down marriage of your physical, your mental, your emotional, and your social well-being. Health is all these other things kind of put in a blender, mix them together. And when I say up and down, what I mean by that is that we can't expect our health to be linear or
Mhm.
perfect the entire time. Sometimes we're happy, sometimes we're sad, sometimes we're at peak health, sometimes we get sick, sometimes we're stressed out and we're anxious, and other times we feel in a state of calmness. Sometimes we have things like the global pandemic and we can't have social interactions. So it's how all those things are mixed together and how we react to them and how we try to improve every single day. I think every day, if you try to make one of those things, at least one of those things, a little bit better, I think you're on your way to being the healthiest you can. And I don't think we can ever be too healthy, right? Because again, there's all these dimensions that we can look into and mush together, but it's not just being able-bodied or being healthy inside, right? There's all these other things that make us healthy as well that we should be focusing on that I think we don't necessarily do as part of our just overall Western society.
Yeah, I like that. I think that kind of gives some relief too for people that maybe it's like not just this perfect thing that you have to attain, it's a never-ending process and it's a growth journey to improve your health. And
Absolutely.
it can't always be perfect. We don't always have to be going up, 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 up. Like, like, we would like our society kind of encourages it goes up and down, up and down. So I'm curious because you worked with lots of people and you work primarily with women, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So when it comes, I know this is a big question, but like when it comes to food and our bodies, what are some of the biggest issues that you see that maybe irk you or get you upset or like sad or like really, tug at your heart that you see with your clients?
Yeah. I can name or list 20,000 different things, but I fruit of everything is a sense of distrust. I think as women, and this may be, I know this may be kind of a different answer, but I think especially women in our culture, we've been indoctrinated to have the sense of distrust in ourselves. We don't trust that we know how much food our bodies need. Sometimes we don't even trust whether or not we're mentally okay, because as you know, from back in the day, women were called, they were going through hysteria and they were going through these things and they were trying to be something they're not, or trying to change the concept of women. And I think it all stems from distrust. And what I mean by that is we're not really sure, do I need to be skinny right now? Is my body okay? I mean, I feel good, but someone else is telling me that I need to look different. So then you don't even trust your own sense of judgment in that sense. Distrust in the sense that, well, I need to do 3 hours of cardio because that's what I read on the internet, but I don't want to do that. I want to do pole dancing, or I like to go on bike rides, or I like to go on runs, or I just want to lift heavy weights. Again, there's that sense of you don't trust that you know what's best for you. And the bigger issue too is that we tend to look a lot outside for validation, and we don't find that within ourselves. And I don't think that's as common in the biological male brain for some reason. I heard this one time in some podcast, and they said, have the confidence of a mediocre middle-aged Caucasian man, right? And
Straight
when I
man,
heard,
yeah.
yes, yes, Caucasian straight man. When I heard that for the first time, I giggled, but then I started thinking about it more. I'm like, you're right. As women, we have these thought processes that most other people don't have, and it's very strange. And if we're able to rebuild that confidence from the ground up, I think your relationship with food is going to improve, your relationship with your body, your relationship with other people. But it takes a lot of effort to sit down and think, oh, I don't trust that I'm making the best decisions for my life and my body and myself. I'm going to change that today. And that's kind of the pillar of what I do with working with people is we're not working on macros. We're not working on exercise. The first thing we do during that first initial session is how do you feel about yourself? Do you trust yourself?
Mm,
Build that up before we focus on all these other things.
that's the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, we're so socialized to please, to act a certain way, to look a certain way. It's all around us. So it's really going against the grain to trust yourself. It's brave. It's an act of rebellion, I think, for us to trust ourselves and our bodies.
I love that. I think that's it, Michelle. We need to let that inner rebel come out and say, no,
Mhm.
this is not what's good for me. This is not what I need to be doing for myself. Because you know what? Everybody, regardless of gender or social strata or economic level education, we're all wanting the same thing at the end of the day. We want to feel good. We want to feel validated. We want to feel like we mean something in this world. And sometimes it has to happen that way. Like, no, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it. And I don't care what other people say. This is the way that I'm going to do it for myself. And once you allow yourself to do that, to let that inner rebel come out, then you can truly be in tune with who you are right now, but also who you want to be. I feel
Mhm.
like sometimes we're not staying honest with who we want to be. And once we're able to figure that out, then we're able to kind of work backwards from there and figure out, okay, what do I need to be doing now?
Yes. Yes. And a part of that trust comes into play with, like you said, it's not about the macros, it's not about, what exactly what you're doing, it's that foundation that you have to build. But when we come to, like, if we go a little bit forward and see the kind of results that come from that lack of trust, there's a lot of fear around food. There's a lot of dieting. There's a lot of restriction. There's a lot of I can't eat too much, or I'm always eating too much, or I need to be in control. How do you I think that's a result of that lack of trust, right? As well as all this messaging that we get from diet culture. But how do you help your clients build that trust and overcome restrictive dieting mentality that, causes those ups and downs and that inconsistency?
So the first thing that I do is build a trust between you and I. Because if we're working together and you don't trust that, one, I have your best interests at heart, two,
Mm.
that I'm going to be carrying you and holding your hand throughout this process, like I promised you in the beginning, then we're already starting on the wrong foot. So that's the first thing. You and I are going to build a sense of trust. Then we're going to do a lot of cognitive rewiring and behavioral challenging. And what I mean by that is that first onboarding session and that first week, I'm telling you time and time again and 1,300 times, this is going to suck a little bit. You're going to be scared. You're not going to trust yourself for a lot of the things that we're going to want to do. But I need you to trust me that you will get there and that you will start gaining some trust. And people see it, often quite quickly during those first stages where they're like, oh, wait, so I'm not going on a diet right now, or you're not telling me to, skip carbs or count calories. I'm like, nope. The first thing we're going to do this week is I just want you to follow your human nature. What foods do you like to eat? Not the things that you think I want to see on your food log or on your diary. What are some things that you like to do? What's your normal without having this pressure of this is what I need to do, this is what I
Yeah.
need to do. And then you empower that person to say, you know what? I'm an agent of myself and my body. I can eat this stupid cookie if I want to, and no,
Yeah.
I'm not, and I'm not gonna gain 3 pounds because I have, and we have that science background and that knowledge to know by now that that's not how, physiology works. And I think one of the things too that you do a great job at, Michelle, and that we need more of is educating our people, not just telling them what to do, because that's where empowerment comes from. It comes from knowledge.
Absolutely.
If I,
Yes.
yeah, if I just tell you do this, and that, and I don't explain to you why I'm asking you to do these things, then again, you're relinquishing power onto me. And that's not what I want you to do. I want you to feel empowered. I want you to do and try these things and test them out and tell me how you feel. And sometimes we have a little back and forth where the next week you come in and say, that challenge you gave me didn't really work so hot for me. I felt very uncomfortable. And then we try other things. So it's you and I build trust. We do the cognitive rewiring, we do the behavioral challenges to make sure that you're feeling tested every week. And eventually you become so empowered that you overcome that dieting mentality and that restriction. And you say,
Mhm.
F it. I want to go to the bar tonight and eat some chicken tenders with french fries and a beer with my friends, and that's okay, but you have to get there slowly. It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah. And I think once you have a taste, figuratively, for how good it feels to have that empowerment,
Yes.
you don't want to go back to the restriction. And I think it's interesting. You talked about distrust being one of the most biggest issues, one of the biggest issues. And then the opposite of that is empowerment, having that empowerment. And I want to point out too that your clients are not getting there completely on their own. They could, it would take a long time, lots of trial and error, which is something that I had to go through in lots of ways. But we don't heal in a vacuum. We heal in community and we heal with support. And that's why support is so important. The longer I do this, the more I realize how important it is to get outside support for whatever you're struggling with food or your body or your fitness, your health. So I know you said before about health being something that's sustainable and long term. I'm completely on board with that. I completely agree with you. What do you see as the most important things or the most important factors for getting results that last? Like if you want to say, for example, one of your goals is to lose weight, you don't want to just lose some weight, you want to keep it off, or you want to be consistent in your healthy habits. What do you see as the most important factors for getting there?
I will have to say the number one thing you need to identify is who you want to be and what kind of life you want to live long term.
It's so good.
We
Yes.
can do anything short term. I could fast if I wanted to. I'm sure I could fast for 3 days in the name of weight loss,
Yeah.
or I could eat the cabbage soup for, 5 days in the name of weight loss. But that is not at all the life that I want to live. I want
No.
to live the life that we lived earlier this week when Michelle took me through an awesome workout. And then,
Uh,
then we went out and hung out with everyone that was at the workout. And I've always been so transparent with my own journey. This is a topic for another podcast, with my own struggles with trying to fit the mold, or even with the backlash of competitive bodybuilding and disordered eating and whatnot.
mhm.
At one point I woke up and I decided my goal in life is not to be 8% body fat. Although I did absolutely love how I looked when I was 8% body fat. I'm not going to lie. I still look at those pictures. I'm like, oh my God, those abs, so cute. But that's not the life that I want to live. I want to be able to go out with Michelle and the peeps and eat chicken tenders and waffle fries and a lemonade cocktail.
And a
And
Reuben for me.
yeah, and a Reuben from a shop. And the next day, wake up and have a latte and go rock climbing and eat a delicious salad because I love greens. And then, kind of eat ice cream sometimes with my friends because it's, warm outside. That's the kind of life that I want to live. So now I have to think here and say, well, that's the life that I want to live long term. what am I unhappy about right now? And how can I find the happy medium? Because you're never going to get it all. You can't get it all. We can't. So, everyone, and if you're listening to this right now, maybe pause this podcast for a couple minutes and think, okay, I really want to lose weight. I really want to have abs or whatever it is that you want to do. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe you want to gain a bunch of muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, think, what do I want now? And how do I envision this fitting into my life and the life that I want to live 5, 10, 15 years from now?
Yeah.
And then think, what's the happy marriage, happy medium in between those two things? And once you're able to identify that, then you're going to work for long lasting results. Then you're going to work for consistency. And, with the type of people that I work with, I don't ever want to make weight loss the center of the universe. But I think it's important to also honor that some people historically feel better when they've, lost some weight, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
because you got sick and you're gaining all this weight, or you're on medication that made you gain all this weight and you don't feel good because you can't move properly,
Mm-hmm.
because it hurts to go up the stairs. I think there's value to having weight loss goals at that point. So
Mm-hmm.
you start looking at, maybe I don't need to diet. Maybe I just need to be more physically active slowly, because I can't get up these flights of stairs without feeling like I'm going to pass out. So, this week, my coach and I, or my trainer and I, or me, myself, and I are going to work towards walking on a flat road for 5 minutes and seeing how I can be consistent with that. And next week, I'm going to bump it up to 7 minutes. And when you do that and you think longevity and long term, if we start this week with 5 minutes and next week we're at 7 minutes, where do you think you're going to be, a month, a year from now, right?
Yes.
Unfortunately, we're not wired necessarily to think like that. We have to force it, right? To think
Mm-hmm.
more long term instead of instant gratification. But think about it. Maybe you eat more veggies today, and then you stick with that for a week. And then maybe next week, instead of drinking 7 sodas, you drink 6 and
Yeah.
see how you feel, right? It's, how can we slowly incorporate better habits that are going to get us towards that goal? And before you know it, a year goes by, 3 years go by, and you've achieved and you've accomplished so many things.
Mm-hmm.
Have to get into that longevity mindset first.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that so much. I talk about that with my clients as well, getting into your values and your why and creating your own story. Where do you want to be? We think like, where do I want to be next month? We got to expand that to next year, next decade. How do I want to live when I'm 80 years old? Do I want to be able to move? I probably shouldn't be, yeah, like you said, going on cabbage diets for 5 days all the time. That's not going to help me when I'm 80, Building those habits are. So you mentioned disordered eating uh, briefly, and I know that you're a registered dietitian, and you've talked about your struggles with this. I have too. So how do you deal? And we're talking. This is a sensitive subject, so we're like, there's the binge eating, restrictive. There's both sides, and somewhere in between, and there's so many variations that are not even diagnosed. But how do you deal with disordered eating behaviors with your clients? Like, how do you approach that?
Yeah. So, and for all our listeners too, I always like to give a trigger warning disclaimer whenever I'm talking about these things, whether it's on a podcast or in person or anything like that. You know,
Yeah.
there's usually two types of people that I see. One, they acknowledge and they are aware that they either have disordered eating tendencies or that they have an eating disorder, because it's not the same. For example, I work with people that have all the way from orthorexia, which is very common in, sports, athletics, especially in bodybuilding, wrestling. I work with people that have anorexia, atypical anorexia too, which is, I don't want to get too into it, but if I can leave a tidbit of science and information,
Please.
atypical anorexia is often seen in people that have not the typical anorexic body type or behaviors that you may think of. And I think that's so important to think about
Mhm.
how there's so much bias, and it's getting a lot better as we know more about these things. But anorexia, atypical anorexia, active purging and binge eating disorder, there's also anorexia nervosa, there's all these different things. So the first thing that I do is, if a client or a potential client comes to me with a diagnosed eating disorder, we do establish a plan of care where I'm working alongside their mental health provider. Because I, as a dietitian, I can screen someone for an eating disorder or disordered eating, but I can't make that diagnosis myself. It needs to come from a mental health provider or a psychiatrist, something like that. And on the other camp, I have people that have disordered eating tendencies and behaviors that I've identified through that onboarding process, and through asking a lot of questions and a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy strategies that I work through too in the beginning. We identify, like, yep, this is an overeating, binge eating behavior. And a binge eating behavior doesn't necessarily mean you have a binge eating disorder. That's, again, another topic for another podcast. But I like to first let the person know that this is not their fault. Anyone who has any sort of disease, eating disorder, diabetes, whatever you want to call it, it's not your fault. So if you're hearing this and you're thinking, because I hear this with clients all the time, why can't I stop eating? Or why can't
Mhm.
I just stop purging? Or why can't I just make myself eat even though I know I'm underweight? It's not your fault at all. So the moment, again, giving yourself that level of trust of, hey, I'm struggling with something, and I trust that I'm going to give myself the tools and the opportunity to evolve and to grow from this, and then we can start unpacking and working through a plan of care. So in the early stages of working with someone with disordered eating, there's a lot of trust building within themselves and challenging themselves with their own trains of thoughts. I do work a lot with exposure therapy,
Mhm.
which is where you have a trigger food or something that you think is a bad food, and then we slowly expose you to that, and we do a lot of therapy sessions, and we talk through it, and we do a lot of strategy implementation, and we think, okay, well, this is where you're at right now. What's the goal? How can we start working towards that goal? And it's a very long process. If you're thinking that you're going to unpack years, I work with people that have struggled for decades with disordered eating. It's not going to happen overnight. But you know what? The moment you decide to start making that change, you're already working towards healing, and you're already working towards being, again, a healthier version of yourself. And it doesn't matter if it takes a week, if it takes a year, if it takes 20 years for you to work through your disordered eating. The moment you start working towards it, you're already healing, and you're already better today than you were yesterday. So if anyone listening to this, a tidbit that I can leave you with is, allow yourself time to heal, because we all need that.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I think, yeah, someone who's hearing this and they know maybe they can identify that they have, whether they've been diagnosed and they know from the medical field, or they feel like maybe they just have those behaviors and they're struggling with it. It's worth it to get the help, and it's worth it to recover. It's so worth it. So it's scary, but do it. It's so with the relationship with food, this is where, yeah, like we're stemming from that disordered eating disorder. A lot of our choices around food and our bodies. It's something that this is something that's difficult, okay? Because like if you're talking about like alcohol or nicotine or drugs or whatever, you don't see them all the time, and you don't need those things. But food is something that we need, our bodies need, and so we're constantly faced with these choices, which is why just eating disorders or disordered eating or having issues with food can be extra challenging, because we're constantly faced with these choices. So it's almost more urgent to create that better
Mhm.
relationship with food. So if someone feels like they're struggling, no matter to what degree, in their relationship with food, or they feel like maybe food is such a struggle for them, whether it's dieting or feeling out of control, or even orthorexia, where they like always have to be right and they feel like they can't ever eat unhealthy food. What tips do you have for that person listening to have a better relationship with food that maybe they could take away from this?
I would ask the question of what do you value? What do you value in life? Do you value the fact that you're a size 2 right now, for example, for people that are struggling with orthorexia or that are kind of bouncing back from, sports or athletics? Do you value that? Do you value your health? Right? Because I'm not going to sit here and lie to you, Michelle. I know people that have eating disorders their entire lives and they have no desire to change.
Mm.
And that's not, I have an unbiased opinion on that, and I'm very neutral. You are the advocate for yourself and how you choose to live your life. And if you feel like your disorder is where you want to sit out and hang out until, you die, because we all do, then I have no opinions about that, because again, you are your own agent of your own life. But like you said, food is important and we all need food. And I don't think anyone wants to live in a constant state of chaos. And anytime we're talking about disordered eating, there is always a state of chaos, whether that's all the time or most of the time. It's always there. So ask yourself that question. How do I choose to live the rest of my 30 plus years or my 50 plus years or wherever you are in the stage of your life? And then from there, we can start unpacking things. I don't have many rules when I'm working with people. But the number one rule is weight loss or weight in general has to take a backseat. You're going to put it in the trunk, you're going to put a blanket over it, and you're going to let it take a nap until we are able to work through a better relationship with yourself. And trauma too. We were talking before we started, the eating disorder or the eating behavior is never the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's a response to a problem. Example, do you live a chaotic life and the only thing you can control is what you put in your mouth? Then that's what we need to start focusing on. Do you come from an environment that's constantly worried about weight and physical attributes? Then that's what we need to start working on. Do you come from a place of emotional disruption? Let's say you have some sort of imbalance already where you're struggling constantly with depression and anxiety, and food is the one thing that makes you feel happy and joyful for whatever short period of time you're engaging in that behavior, then that's what we need to focus on. Mm-hmm. So think about it, right? This is a response to something bigger. What is that thing and how can we start working through that? And that's why when I'm working with clients that have diagnosed disordered eating behaviors or eating disorders, we have to have a team setting. It takes a village, like you mentioned a million of times in your social media. It takes community. It takes support. You're not going to do this alone, because you know what? Whatever brought you here in the first place came from a lot of different things. So we need to start unpacking that. Finding your community, finding that support is what's going to help you heal. And, like I said before, the moment you decide that you want to have a better relationship with food and your body, that's when you start the healing process. So don't worry about the ups and downs, because there will be a lot, but you will come, victorious on the other side. And let me tell you, and I'm sure Michelle can tell you, and anyone else that I've worked with in the past, life is so much sweeter on the other side.
Yes.
Life is so much sweeter on the other side. Just allow yourself, make that choice for yourself.
That is so wonderful. It's like music to my ears. And I know that like anyone listening who might be feeling like they're in that struggle or that's like soothing for the soul. Thank you so much. It's so empowering too. It's exciting. So before we get off, and this has been, incredible to say the least, but if you had a microphone and you could speak into it and tell everyone in the whole world, how many over billion people are out there, one message about health and fitness, what would you say?
I would say be a rebel and pave your own journey from scratch.
Ooh.
That's going to give you everything and anything you need to thrive. You can get information, you can process it, you can apply it however you want, but don't let anybody tell you what you should do for your own health and your fitness. Even when you're working with me or when you're working with Michelle, because I know what she does and I love how she works with her people. We're not sitting here and telling you what to do. We're giving you all these tools,
Mm-hmm.
all these options, and we're saying, you know what? Pave your own path, pave your own journey. At the end of the day, I'm going to be there supporting you, cheering you on, giving you water, giving you snacks if you need to get through this race, but pave your own journey. And then when you get there, you can say, you know what? I did it. I did it for myself. I did it based on my own values and my own morals. And there's never truly a finish line, right? Because like we've talked before,
Mm-hmm.
we can always do a little something. We can always set more boundaries. We can always drink more water. We can always, sit less. We can always do more meditation. But you get to this place of maintenance and it's so beautiful and it's so empowering. But get there on your own and get there on your own way. And when I say on your own, I mean creating what you want that future and that paradise to be for you.
Oh, I love that. I wish you did have a mic. I wish I did have a mic that I could give to you. I could really say that to everyone in the world. That is so empowering because it's such a counterintuitive approach too, because most people are used to fitness coaches. And this is what people tell me too, is like fitness coaches or personal trainers. Like, I am the authority. You do what I tell you to do. And some people, really want that. And they think that they need it. They think that they need the drill sergeant to kick them in the ass, or they need this very specific rules and meal plan to follow, or else, they're going to mess it up. But that's where that distrust comes from.
Mhm.
They learn to trust themselves. And you are such a good empowerer. Is that a word? You are such a
That's a
good
word. That's a word.
empowerer.
We're making it a word.
Betty Guerrero is such a good empowerer of people in their health. And I'm so glad that you are doing what you're doing, because it's a gift to the world. And I just want more people to know about you, to hear about you, to work with you, to be under your influence, because it is so beautiful. And I feel so lucky to call you my friend and fellow professional and colleague.
So happy. I'm so happy we met. And, I am a huge believer that of energy and that, we do have the ability to choose, our lives and who we surround ourselves with. And, surrounding myself with people like you, Michelle, has brought so much joy, and you're such a bright light. And anyone who gets to be in your, orbit, I'm sure will say the same thing. So it goes both ways.
Yes, it goes both ways. That's why we're friends, because it goes both ways. So where can people find you? Where can people get more information, talk with you if they want to work with you? Where do they go?
Old fashioned. I like to connect with people more, phone calls, video calls, things like that. So you can check out my website. It's eatwithbetty.com. Very easy. You can also shoot me an email, eatwithbetty@gmail.com. But if you want to check out my social media, I'm very animated, if you can't tell by my voice. I put out awesome content too. I like to keep things light. I like to keep things fun. You can follow me on Instagram at bettyg.guerrero, Guerrero. And let's connect. Add me on Instagram. Send me a DM. I love to meet new people. I'm never too busy to respond to messages. So let's connect, and no strings attached. I talk to people all the time for free, right? Because sometimes people think like, oh my God, what's this going to cost me? Nothing. I love talking to people. I love meeting people. If you have a question, send me a message. Let's connect and let's be friends.
Yeah, seriously, Betty's so friendly and open and so easy to talk with. I'm going to put her information in the show notes so you could just click that link and check her out. Thank you so much, Betty, for being here. This has been so value packed. It feels like like a really good salad with all the greens and all the nuts and the protein and the good salad dressing, like nutrient dense. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye bye.